Oh, come on, man. You can do better than that. Smack your goddamn daddy.
Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of There's a Lesson Here Somewhere, where we dive into TV shows and films that are published on Tubi. We'll explore the good, the bad, and find all the lessons in between. I'm your host, Manji, and for today's episode, we are going to be diving into Blink Twice. Now, if you missed the previous episode, I do think you should go ahead and check it out. We covered Reginald Carter, but let's go ahead and get into Blink Twice. So, this film is about an hour and 40 minutes long, and it's directed by Zoe Kravitz. And it starts with Frida. She's posting her nail art because she's really good at designing nails. And she also is a fan of Slater King, who is the CEO of King Tech. And she sees that he has a video while scrolling social media. And in this video, he's apologizing for some reckless behavior. And he's saying how he's going to take a leave of absence. Then Frida's roommate interrupts her toilet scrolling and asks her for rent money. And Frida gets this money from behind the mirror and lets her roommate know just how much she needs a vacation. Frida and her roommate Jess are both waitresses at this gala. And now Frida's boss actually tells her to be more invisible at this gala because I guess at the last one, she was too recognizable, too out there. And lucky for Frida, Slater King will be in attendance at this gala that she's working. So now Jess and Frida, although they are scheduled to work this event, they brought a change of clothes. And while they're changing into their gala attire, Frida tells Jess something that her mom taught her, and that is success is the best revenge. And I agree with Frida's mother. Now that they fit in, they're walking around, and it looks like Frida may have like spotted Slater and started walking in his direction. And while she was strutting, she ended up tripping and falling and knocking over a waiter and food and just making a scene, not invisible at all. But Slater comes and helps her up. Slater is already introducing Frida to his people. So the first person, or one of the first people that she met was his therapist, and she jokingly said, "If I'm in danger, blink twice." And that therapist pulled down his glasses and got to blinking. Now, of course, it appeared that he's joking, so Frida just laughed at it. But again, Slater started introducing Frida to all of his friends. She met Sarah, and Sarah looked like she was a little bit jealous that she didn't have Slater's attention. She also met Stace. Now, what I thought was interesting when Frida met Stace is that Stace said, "Nice to see you." She did not say nice to meet you, as if she has met Frida before. So now it's time for Slater to leave, and he starts to exit. And now Jess is sitting here with Frida, just reflecting over the night and just how amazing it was. And while they're talking, Slater runs back and invites them to their island. And, she was just talking about a vacation, so they go. So now they're on this island, and the first thing they do is collect everyone's phones. Now, Slater was trying to make it seem like they had a choice because he said, you're free to do whatever you want to do because Jess, she was the only one who was a bit hesitant. She's like, what am I going to do without my phone? But she obliged and gave them her phone. Now, they went from the gala to this island, and each room was already packed with clothing for each of these women, all white attire, white bikinis, white everything. And now, while Frida is in her room, she's looking through the drawers and she sees this old lipstick. It was like a red one, and it looked pretty nasty. And she throws it away, and she's like, like sucker, good luck next time. Like, she this her man now. Now we have this older woman who looks like she's like the help, and she recognizes Frida and she starts calling her Red Rabbit. And she kept calling her Red Rabbit over and over again. And Frida was confused because, that she thinks this is her first time meeting her. And once the help, the maid, I have no idea what her name is, but once she realized that Frida had no recollection of her, you can tell she was like, what the fuck is going on? So she kind of just left. Like she left her cleaning supplies and everything. So now Sarah, we learned that she is like a former reality star. She used to work on this like ninja type survivor type show where she needed a whole bunch of strength in order to win. And at this dinner, she kind of has Slater's attention. So Frida, being a little slick, she ends up choking on a raspberry, and that took Slater's attention away from everyone else at the table. Slater and Frida, they're on a walk, taking a nice little trail, and they're talking about therapy and drugs. And Slater let Frida know that they do drugs with intention. And while they are on this walk, Frida sees that same maid from earlier, but this time it looks like she's killing one of the venomous snakes. And now we are at dinner time. And everyone's getting acquainted, making jokes, like, talking about their endeavors. And it's time to eat. And this steak looks different. It don't look like any steak that I'm familiar with. It was very bloody. And Frida offered Slater some of that steak, and he's like, I don't eat red meat. I think that is a telltale right there. Slater, I know people don't eat red meat, but something was off with that meat, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's something that people don't typically eat. And while Frida was getting this piece of steak, if you want to call it, she ended up getting some blood on her white dress. And one of the girls made a little Kool-Aid joke, which I wasn't very fond of, but there's this it looked like somebody stabbed her. Like that's how much blood was on her dress from this meat. And now Jess, she's actually a fan of Sarah because Sarah was on this like all-star survival type show. And so she was inquiring about her experience. And Sarah, she was just like, she was kind of upset because the show changed its entire formula, not needing Sarah on there anymore. But Jess was like, I'm sure you'll be able to use those skills at some point in life. So now it's time for drugs, and they take this tincture of like MDMA and some other things. And so Slater is the one that's giving Frida her dosage. And, before he gives it to her, he's like, set your intention, make it look like they're doing something serious and spiritual. So now, after everyone has been medicated, they are out just having a fun time, just having a terrific experience out in the fields. And it got to a point where they're kind of just like laughing and they like fall to the ground. And Frida looks down and noticed that the red spot on her dress is now gone. Now, someone else noticed her look and he asked her, like, what's going on? She's like, no, no. While on this island, time does not exist. They don't have their phones. There's no clocks, I'm assuming, anywhere. So every day was literally the same thing. So it probably felt like all went one big blur to everyone there. So they would get up, they would put on their perfume, put on some white attire, go outside, go do some random shit, probably smoke, do some drugs, have dinner, go outside, dance, do some stuff, wake up in the morning, repeat. But on one particular occasion, it was Slater and Frida, and they were, having a conversation. And Slater was like, yo, how'd you get that scar on your face? And Frida's like, I actually don't know. Now, every morning, although it's repeat, the thing that's also repeating is things that Frida, and all the other girls and one guy, they see done to their body but have no recollection of like how it got there. So, for example, there were many mornings where Frida will wake up and there's like dirt under her nails. And it's not just a little dirt, it's like enough dirt to where it looks like she's digging in dirt outside. So every morning she's like befuddled by that. Like, how the fuck did this dirt get here? Now, when Slater and Frida was chatting about that scar on his face, he ended up leaving pretty quickly after asking that question, in which he left his vape. So Frida's been hitting his vape, and now on this next day, she's preparing to return the vape to him. And while she's waiting for him, she's inhaling away. And he comes out of therapy, and she meets the therapist again. And he acts as if they never met. And she's like, "Oh no, yeah, we met at the gala." And he looks like, huh, like super surprised that she remembers him.
Frida, this is Rich. Rich. Frida.
Very nice to meet you.
I remember you. From the gala. Blink twice if I'm in danger.
That's right.
In the next scene, they were having another dance party, but this time it was to my jam, and that was Young Hearts Run Free. And while they are out partying and stuff, Jess ends up getting bit by a snake. And then as one of the guys comes up and snaps a photo, like I must mention that there's always someone around with a Polaroid camera snapping photos throughout the day and night. That is something that is just constant throughout this film. So now at this point, Jess is just frustrated and she just wants her phone and low key to go home. But Frida high key was not trying to hear that. She even mentioned that like she wants to continue to enjoy not being invisible. Like she's loving all this attention that she's getting from Slater. And she thinks she's having like a really great time because what she can remember is just them partying and doing drugs and her being with Slater. But Jess, being a good friend, is like, you know what? I'm going to support you and I'll shut the fuck up and just, I guess, try to hang as much as possible. And then she goes back to her room and it's a full moon. And we see Jess just looking out with blood coming from her nose. And after watching the film, we know that once that blood is dripping from their nose, they are remembering something that they were forced to forget. And this is actually the last time that we see Jess. The next morning, Frida's out and she sees this random red gift bag out in the dirt. So, and then she picks it up and she sees a hut nearby, ends up going inside and seeing it's a full room full of just red bags just lined up. She didn't look in it at this time, but she knows that they are here now. We see the girls having a blast as usual, but if you're paying attention, you will see that Jess is actually missing from the group. And the next morning, Frida wakes up with a bloody nose. And not the bloody nose that comes from remembering, but a bloody nose that comes from someone probably punching you in it. And she's also puking. Like, this is how she starts her day. I'm pretty sure she feels like shit. And now at breakfast, you can see Frida is kind of out of it because this morning was a little bit worse than the others in terms of seeing all these things done to her body and not having any recollection. Like the dirt under her nails happened again, which I guess she's kind of used to because she's waking up every morning with that. However, the bloody nose and the puking, so she just looks like she's out of it at breakfast. And everyone is kind of like, what the fuck is going on? Like one girl is like, how the fuck did I get bangs? Sarah, she's all bruised up and she don't know how the fuck that happened. The boy, he got a whole black eye. And so everybody is asking questions like, yo, how did this happen? And the guys who they went to this island with have a story and answer for all their questions. So now Frida is just hanging with the girls per usual, smoking a big fat blunt. And which something that was common throughout this film is that, they would be forgetting things. So the main thing that was constantly asked for was a lighter. And the person who usually had the lighter was Jess. And she made a joke earlier in the film saying how she should write her name on the lighter. So while the girls are out smoking and stuff now, someone asked about a lighter and that triggered something within Frida, and she remembered Jess and she realized that Jess is no longer there. And she's like, y'all, what the fuck happened to Jess? And everybody is like, who is Jess? And they're like, Jess, my friend, Jess. And now they think Frida is crazy because they like, who the fuck is Jess? So Frida, she goes back to her room because Jess was her literally in the room next to her. And she sees Stace on the way and she's like, yo, where's Jess? And Stace is like, who's Jess? And she's like, the girl who's in the room next to me. And she's like, you mean the storage room? So Frida made it to the room, and lo and behold, it's a fucking storage room. Now, before we move any further, I forgot to mention that while Frida was in that hut, she was about to attempt to see what was inside those red gift bags. However, the same maid that she's been seeing had startled her, and she seen her in there doing something, and she had this bottle. And there was like a language barrier or something, so they couldn't truly communicate with each other. But the maid definitely kept calling her Red Rabbit a whole bunch of times. And then she gave her this concoction, and they hear drinking and partying all night. So it wasn't nothing to Frida to take a sip of this. And so she did. And of course, it was disgusting because she was like, what is this? And she seen a snake in the sink. So she put two and two together and realized that it's most likely snake venom that's in this concoction. And so after that, the maid just kept calling her like Red Rabbit, Red Rabbit, Red Rabbit. So now we're fast forward to her remembering that Jess used to be there. And now Sarah pulled up to Frida's room because she found the lighter and Jess did write her name on it. So she was like, yo, this lighter says Jess on it. And although she has this proof that there may have been someone named Jess here on this island with them, it's really hard for Sarah to believe it because she's like, I don't forget things. And I feel like if this Jess character was here, then I would have known. And Frida kind of feels the same way. So they're really trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. So now Frida's asking Sarah, like, what day is it? And she's like, I don't know. But that wasn't enough. That wasn't concerning enough for Sarah because she's like, I never know what day it is actually. But then, Frida mentioned how they'll wake up with like bruises and stuff. Now that's where Sarah was like, okay, yeah, with that, some funny shit is going on because you mean to tell me that me, 5-star all stars champion, fell off the tree? Like, you think my warrior ass made it on that show from falling off trees? Ain't no way these bruises came from me falling off a tree. So that's when she was like, yeah, something's going on because you right. You right. These bruises, yeah, they lying. Now Sarah was just kind of reflecting on her decision, and out loud she was like, we should know better than to just leave with some fucking strangers. Then Frida's like, hold up, I thought you knew them. She's like, no. So now both of them is like, how dumb can we be to just get on a plane with some fucking strangers?
Oh what the fuck were we thinking? Fuck! I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it was too good to be true. Of course they're fucking with our heads.
So after realizing that they've been tripping, Sarah came to the conclusion that they are trying to control them and they are forcing them to forget. But how? So now Frida directs Sarah over to that room, that little hut that had those red gift bags. And they finally look in it and they see it's the perfume that they've been wearing on the daily. Everyone there, well, all the girls and that one boy have been consistently wearing this perfume. And now they like, yo, we need to call the cops. We need to call the FBI. We need to call somebody. But then Frida, she's also a black woman, so she got to think of this. Like, she got to really process, like, if calling the cops is actually necessary. And she's like, yo, we called them. Nobody's going to remember anything. We don't even remember anything. So we literally don't have no proof. We're going to be like, I feel like they're doing this. Like, they're going to laugh at us, put us in a nut house. Like, she went the extreme. But it clicked with Sarah. And she's like, yo, Frida, like, I don't remember Jess, but you do. Why is that? And then, because these are some smart checks, you know what I'm saying? So Frida's like, snake venom. The maid gave me some that other time when I was up in here. So they went and got more of the snake venom and she had Sarah try some. And now they're like, yo, we got to get all the girls to drink some. And so they take some back and they made it seem like it's, just shots. Because again, they hear partying literally nonstop. So you can probably give them anything and they'll drink it. But, they did. So they were saying how, but then they actually told them straight up that it was snake venom. And they thought that was actually kind of dope too. And so they just kept on drinking. So now Sarah is low key freaking out because her nose is bleeding. Now they're able to do all of this because the guys went on a little day trip that the women wasn't trying to join them on. So they're supposed to be here having a girls' day, and now they got this venom and they're drinking it. And Sarah's nose is bleeding. And like I said earlier, when their nose start bleeding, that means they're remembering. And so you can tell she's overwhelmed with probably what she is remembering. She tries to get the other girls to stop drinking, but they was like, girl, just because you a weak bitch don't mean I'm a weak bitch. Like, let me finish drinking my shit. And they continued on drinking it. I guess they loved it. So now the boys are back. And Slater, first thing, he like, where Frida? Frida was in the house trying to find something that they can connect to figure out what the fuck is truly going on here. And she did find some things. The main thing that was of importance was these Polaroid photos. So she didn't get the chance to like thoroughly look through them because once she seen them, she heard the pigeon call from Sarah, which was Blunt, Big Fat Blunt. So that meant that Slater is on his way to his office area. So Frida just had to grab some of those Polaroids, put it in her shirt, and then seek refuge. So Frida is hiding under her desk and her nose is bleeding too. So that means she's probably remembering stuff. And thankfully, Slater did not catch her under that desk. Now, while Frida was under that desk, she remembered what happened to Jess. She remembered exactly how they got rid of her. And she remembered that they got rid of her because she got bitten by the snake, which means she would be remembering all the things that they've been doing to these women. So Frida made her way outside the house without being seen by Slater. So when she made it out to the crew, everyone was happy to see her. And Sarah, she left the group so she could make it seem like she was going to give Frida a big old fat blunt. And so she can catch up and see what she found, and which Frida informed her she know exactly what happened to Sarah. Then here comes Slater. So now they have to try their hardest to act like they're having a great time, despite knowing what these men have been doing to them the entire time they've been here. So now it's dinner time, and one of the guys, they get up to like cut something. I don't know, they're doing something, but whatever they're doing is making their chains make a type of clicking noise. And this noise triggered a thought in one of the women in which they remembered being raped. They remembered basically being treated like fucking cattle. Like these men, whatever diabolical desire they had in their head, they did with these women. We learn that the therapist is in on it. So Slater, he's a smart guy. He can tell, you can tell that he can tell that something's off with both Sarah and Frida. He's peeping Sarah and he asks her, like, so you're having a good time? And it's gonna be hard to act like you're having a good time with those memories that they are now reliving. And so, she tried to fake it, make it seem like she is, and she ends up going on a whole tangent about like how important it is for women to come together and how important it is for women to have self-defense skills because you never know when, you're going to be in a secluded area and might need to fight for your life. And she somehow made it seem like she was joking. And just to lighten the air, they ended up dancing. So both Sarah and Frida, they kind of started off. I think Frida actually started it off. And, they just swaying and just making it seem like they're just having a grand time. They're dancing on the tables. Eventually, everyone joins them in the dancing, and it's another dance party. And we see Slater, pull Frida to the side because normally, they be booed up. But now Frida is getting all these downloads in which it's really hard for her to act cool. And so, again, Slater is very observant. And while he's all up on her, trying to kiss her, she looks visibly scared and she's trying to act like she's not. Like you hear quivers in her breath. Like this girl is terrified, and rightfully so. This dude's a fucking monster. And while they're dancing, Sarah, she's plotting. It was like this object that looks similar to a corkscrew. She hides it in like a planter so she can, use later on. Really quick, when the girls was out drinking the snake venom at the pool, Stacy was there and she was already drunk, and they ended up giving her some as well. So now fast forward to this night where they're at this dance party. Stace, she's drunk per usual and it's getting ready to like eat like some sort of treat. And then that's when it all comes flooding back, all the memories. And we can tell because she remembers, she drops everything that's in her hand. So there was like this, she's probably biracial, possibly Dominican. She had an afro, very fair skin, and she was talking about how she was from the Bronx. She stopped. You see the blood dripping. We know what that means. And you can see the rage on this woman's face. Now in the next scene, we still see Slater all up on Frida and he's sniffing her. And now he's realizing that she's not wearing that perfume. So he's putting two and two together now. So my girl from the Bronx, she wasted no time and got to work as she should. And she grabbed a knife, and it was like this one chunky dude who had the penis drawn on his forehead, stabbed him in the neck. And then she just kept going and just kept stabbing. I'm assuming until she couldn't stab no more. And the blonde girl who was hollering about big flat blunts the entire time remembers, and she gets to work as well. This is my favorite part of this movie. The fact when these women take their power back, and the fact that there was no hesitation on making or getting their justice on their own terms. Like they didn't, even think about going to the cops or nothing. As soon as they remembered, they got to work. And I respect that. So the blonde girl, she kills one of the guys with like this concrete chessboard. And, they are up against a lot of men. So eventually they take over the situation. We see Slater holding the girl from the Bronx down. And then one of the other guys, he looked like, I don't even know how to describe him, but if you pay attention to him in the film, you can tell he probably wasn't participating in like all the drug binges and stuff, but he was just simply there to observe and take notes, probably for just in case something like this were to happen. So he came prepared. He had a gun and he shot the blonde girl. So she's out. Sarah was able to handle her dude too. It was like the dude that kept calling her babe the entire film. She got to that corkscrew and stabbed it in his hand. She didn't, fully kill him at this point, but she hurt him enough for her to like get away. So while Slater is holding down a homegirl from the Bronx, we see Frida in the cut. And Frida just takes off as she should. And the dude, Mr. Observer, he goes after her. And this dude was running hella fast. And Frida was running faster though. Like they were speedy fucking out here. Oh my goodness. Eventually, Frida does get caught by old boy because she was smart to like hide, but while she was trying to sneak away, she like stepped on the wrong branch and it made the loudest noise. So he was able to capture her. And while he's out doing that, we are back with Slater and he's here with Miss Bronx and he suffocates her with his foot because they got her tied up on the ground like a fucking turkey. And he simply just put his foot on her neck, literally, until she stopped breathing. So Mr. Observer, he was getting ready to actually shoot Frida, but before he could pull that trigger, Sarah pulls up and hit him in the head with a brick, saving Frida. But of course, she didn't just stop there. She kept going and hitting him with that brick to ensure that this motherfucker is dead. And they took his gun, because they gonna need it. So while Frida is running away, she ends up tripping and falling. And that's when the Polaroids that she took earlier falls out of her dress or her top. And when she picked it up, she noticed herself in one of these photos and she was showing off the red rabbits on her nails. So now she understands why this woman kept calling her Red Rabbit. She's been here before. So now Frida is back inside and Stacy's there and she's like crying and shit. So Frida, of course, tries to console her, but then Stace started fucking choking Frida because she didn't want to remember. Stacy was fully aware of what the fuck's been going on here and she made the decision to use the perfume because she didn't want to remember the shit she was probably having these women go through and signing up for and orchestrating. Like she didn't want to, I guess, deal with the burden of being responsible for that. And so she started attacking Frida, but Frida, she ain't no little bitch. She ends up stabbing Stace. And now once Stace stabbed in the neck, she tried to switch it up and be like, help me. But Frida was like, bitch, I tried. That's my girl, Frida. So Sarah's the one with the gun, and she ends up shooting the dude who she put the corkscrew through his hand earlier. And now the boy who was hanging out, who was low-key one of the girls, is with Slater and someone else there. The dude that was like, I think stabbed in the neck, he was somehow surviving. It was somebody who was not gonna live for very much longer there. And he's trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. Like, why are these women acting like this? And then somebody was like, you don't remember because you wear the perfume. And he's still even more confused. Like, what the fuck is going on? So Frida catches up with Sarah and shows her the photos and, let her know that I've fucking been here before. So now it's like, let's go finish these motherfuckers off. So they go see the guys. Frida was making it seem like she was just so distraught and truly needed their help. So she's like calling out for them outside. And so the boy who don't remember anything, he goes and he's like, he's going to do something. Now, this was low key motivated by Slater's speech because again, this boy was asking like, what did he do? Because he's trying to, I guess he thinks that he did something to these women as well. And Slater went on a whole tangent about he didn't do anything.
I meant you did nothing. You did nothing for yourself. You did nothing for them. And in my opinion, there's a real special place in hell reserved for people that just choose to do nothing.
So now Frida pulls up, acting like she's in distraught, yelling for help. So now, oh boy, like, I'm about to do something. So he goes, open the door. As soon as he opened that door, pop! Sarah, one to the head, one to the head. And so Slater moved quickly and closed the door because Frida was on her way in there with a knife to get to work. He ended up pulling Frida up in the house and locking the door, leaving Sarah outside and having Frida inside. So when she's inside, of course, she's pleading for her life, in which she grabs a weapon and starts attacking Slater. And while they're, going back and forth, she actually remembers how she got that scar on her head. And she got it because of this motherfucker. So the last time she was here, I guess she was running from him or something. And he grabbed her dress, held it while she was still trying to get away, then let go. And then that made her fall. And her face fell flat right onto a fucking rock. scarring her for life. She also remembered that she is the reason why one of the boys was missing the pinky. The last time she was here, she bit it off. So I can only imagine what the fuck they were doing to her for her to resort to biting off a fucking pinky. So Slater has Frida tied up on the ground, but Frida, she's ready to live. You know what I'm saying? She has like a little needle or something, and she's cutting the fabric that Slater tied her up with. And while she's doing this, he's going on his little spiel about how forgiveness isn't real. And he was saying how he was sorry, just like hysterically to her. And then he was like, see, do you forgive me? See, forgiveness is fake. But then he was just saying how beneficial it would be for human beings to not remember trauma. And then he was comparing how he's living to his sister because they endured a lot of trauma growing up, but he's, choosing to not remember while his sister is raw dogging life. And he's saying his sister is all fucked up because she remembered. And then he was like, yo, we can just forget about it together. And while all this is happening, Sarah is trying to break the fuck in. She's shooting down this door and just trying to get up in this motherfucker. So Slater eventually drags Sarah up in the house as well. And now Frida is pleading for her life as well as Sarah's life. And while she was pleading for her life, Slater was like, you think I'm going to kill you? Like, I would never do that to you. You're my best friend. And at the beginning of this film, Zoe had like a little disclaimer saying how the purpose of this film is to show you what abuse of power look like or an example of it. Of course, not verbatim. Obviously, Slater and the rest of his crew, his male crew, have been the people who've been holding the power this entire time. But once he was like, I'm not going to kill you, you're my best friend, I feel like we can literally see that power shifts over and goes to Frida. And I feel like maybe it's just me, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I feel like you can tell that she knows that she low-key got the power now because it's like, oh, you fuck with me like that, huh? But that doesn't mean Sarah's off limits. So he goes over and he's getting ready to slice Sarah's throat. So Frida, she's pleading, begging for Sarah's life, but he's still getting ready. But then he just stops and then he starts coughing and then he starts coughing more. Then eventually he kind of just drops Sarah. He's trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. And then eventually he really is trying to figure out what the fuck is going on because he truly can't remember what is happening. And so he's seeing all these bodies everywhere. And he's like, what happened to you? What happened to them? Because my girl Frida, she put some of that perfume in his vape. So this whole time he's been vaping the very same fragrance that's been making everyone else forget. So now he can't remember anything. And now once he realized that this was all Frida's doing, he tries to attack her, but he ends up slipping, knocking a candle over, starting a fire, but also hitting his head. So he like passed out because he hit his head on like the dresser or something. And now the house is on fire. And this is also one of my favorite shots too. We see the helper woman who has been calling Frida Red Rabbit this entire time. She looks so pleased. She looks so happy that this house was on fire because I feel like to her, she knows that the girls did what they needed to do after, she gave Frida that concoction to remember what the fuck's been going on here. So shout out to that little lady. So again, the house is on fire and the only two people who are alive or at least conscious enough to leave this house is Frida and Sarah. So we see them leaving and it looks like Frida is dragging something. And so we see Sarah and Frida sitting outside just looking at the house burn. Like, they have a little banter. And then Sarah asks her, like, are you sure you know what you're doing? And then the camera pan down and we see that Frida done pulled this motherfucker out the fire. She pulled Slater out. So she saved him after all he did to her. But there was a method to her madness. So in the next scene, we are at a very similar gala that Slater met Frida and Jess and Sarah and all the girls from the island. And we see Slater with his therapist, and his therapist, like, being very familiar with him. But it's pretty obvious that Slater don't know who the fuck this guy is, and he's trying his best to make it seem like he remembers. And so he's like, yo, like, let's connect next week. And then we hear a very familiar voice. You sound real familiar, homie. And it's fucking Frida. And she's like, we'll be in Beijing next week.
We're in Beijing next week.
Okay. Sorry, I don't think we've met.
Of course we have. I remember you. Higher Rich.
But when Frida said that, she also, I think she handed Slater the little substance. Now, based on the color of it, it's safe to assume that this is perfume. So it's probably safe to assume that this is how she's keeping her own control over Slater right now. And then it's also announced that she is the CEO of King Tech. Her name is now Frida King. So they married and she is now the CEO and Slater is now her little puppet. So our girl Frida is now in full control and holding all the power of this tech world and now of Slater, the very man who used to abuse his power when it came to her. And this film ends with James Brown playing I Paid the Cost to Be the Boss. My granny used to always say that growing up. So Yeah. Let's get into the lessons. There's only so much you can do if you're being forced to not remember anything. So it's kind of hard to avoid that if you are being forced to forget through unknowingly through perfume or with whatever other substance there is. So I'm not even going to touch on how things could have been avoided in that realm. However, you could always trust yourself when being in those situation, kind of like Jess, for example. She was like, something is not right. She was the main one who spoke up and trying to figure out what the fuck is going on because every day something weird has been happening. And instead of acting like it's not, she actually highlighted it and trusted herself enough to say something on it. Not to mention, she was the only one who thought it was weird that they had to turn in their phones. She was the only one who was asking questions even before getting bit by the snake. So there's always that reminder constantly to truly trust yourself. So if you are in a situation and you're feeling weird about a person or a new situation, always go with your gut rather than what anybody else is telling you because your gut is going to always guide you to what is best for you. The other obvious lesson is yes, there are plenty of millionaires out here. Some of them are handsome, some of them are not, but they all got money in which we all desire. So if we meet someone, usually a man with that type of status, and they offer you to go to a private island immediately, like you don't go home, you don't get anything, and you just leave and go. You don't know who this person is. Don't do that. Especially in 2026, like back in the day, maybe, you could possibly get a pleasant situation out of that, but we are too aware now. We've been talking about lists and islands for a while now, so we are very aware what be going on with these millionaires and islands. Don't even get me started on Dubai. So we are all with the internet. We are all fully aware of what's possible when you go to these secluded areas with people who got a lot of money, who have a lot of power. They will usually, like, probably 9.5 times out of 10, try to exert that power over you given the chance. So the lesson here is no matter how much money they got, no matter how good they look, don't leave off to an excluded place with that person. Yeah, I really enjoyed this film. This is the type of films that I prefer. I love thinking. And the second time watching this, I was able to pick up on all the little Easter eggs and throughout the film. And I thought this was just well done. I know people be hating on sequels, but I would love to see a sequel of this. I would love to see how Frida ends up abusing her power now that she has it. And again, my favorite thing was that transfer of power. Like instead of letting these experiences with these men that they now remember, literally, instead of letting it ruin them, like they didn't even call the police or anything. They handled that shit on their own. Granted, we did lose some soldiers throughout handling it on their own. But however, Frida eventually turned it around for her benefit. But Sarah, she made it out alive, and I'm pretty sure that was enough for her. And she got her revenge because she killed the motherfuckers. And she would have killed Slater too if it wasn't for Frida. So the fact that these women wasted no time and demanded their power back, I loved it. So shout out to Zoe Kravitz. I love this film. If you made it this far, that means you fuck with your girl. So go ahead and subscribe. Give this podcast a like. Go ahead and share it with a friend. Next week, we are going to be diving into security. Thank you all for joining me for this episode. I will see y'all next week.